Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach. I've spent 40 years helping people self-differentiate and learn a family systems approach to relationships and problems. And today's video is entitled 5 Family Systems Ways to a Healthier Relationship. And these are things that I help couples work on when I work with them, or even individuals, because you can work as an individual in a family systems way to improve your relationship. And so, number 1, focus on self-functioning. And I think that's very important. Whenever there are problems in the relationship, when you want to improve the relationship, get the focus off your spouse, your relationship, the other person, your partner. Get the focus on you. What can you do to change your functioning in the relationship? Because that puts pressure on the relationship in a mature way to grow and change. So if I change, it puts pressure on a relationship for all boats to rise. When I change me, stabilize yourself, particularly if there are problems or conflicts. Work on stabilizing you rather than I won't be stable, I won't be okay, I'll feel this anger, resentment, anxiety until they change. That's not a good way to get a relationship in a healthier place. And remember, after we get the focus off the other, we now have our issues to deal with, which we have some power over, and we are empowered to do that, versus distracting us from our issues and the work of individuating and self-differentiation. We get distracted with the problems, the symptoms, the issues, how they function. We get distracted with all of that and take the focus off us. And that can be a real problem. It's also bringing down, when we work on us as being a whole person, when we work on us in a relationship, it reduces that making two selves into one. In other words, they and me together equal a whole self. No, we want me to have a whole self, they to have a whole self, and we come together. That's the ideal. And so when we focus on us, we're taking that focus off of the 50-50 marriage or the 50-50 relationship. Healthy relationships are 100%, 100%. Not 50-50, because then we're leaning on them, we're needing them for so many things that they can fail in or not provide for us, that maybe we should be providing for ourselves. Second of all, remember your family of origin is a part of your relationships. Even today, your family of origin is a part of your relationships. And this is the key to functioning and getting the love that you want. This is a very important key. And there's a very good book, Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendricks. Great book, great workbook. Getting the Love You Want talks about dealing with and recognizing how we're functioning from time long ago and how it's showing up now. And that gives us some power to make some changes and to understand ourselves more. And also it allows for us to get the love that we're wanting. We can begin to learn how our fusion and enmeshment and unresolved triangles with our family of origin can influence our relationships now. Even though I was triangulated between my dad and mom, they are both now deceased, doesn't mean that triangle stopped operating when they passed away. It may still be operating within me, and if I don't deal with that, I'm going to bring that to a relationship. And that's going to be a part of how we function in a relationship in the present. I do like to say that parents are not causes, but they are receptors and conduits of that multi-generational emotional process. They inherited, we inherited, and they're a conduit and a receptor of those things. That's different than they're just the cause. Now, that doesn't take away their responsibility or things they have done wrong, if they have been abusive and all those things. Certainly, they take moral and adult responsibility and should for those behaviors, which they may take responsibility for or not. But if we see them not as causes but as receptors and of conduits, we can begin to see a larger zoom out perspective of the family and be able to function better as an individual. Because they are as much caught in their family of origin emotional process as we are with them in our family of origin emotional process. Again, that doesn't excuse away any bad behavior. We still have to take responsibility for our choices. I mean, I may have been abused. I may have been psychologically abused. I may have been grew up in poverty that was so crushing and those kinds of things. And then I go rob a bank. Well, I can't tell the judge you should let me off because I've had a bad childhood. No, we still have responsibility for our actions. Now, there may be reasons and maybe factors and emotional dynamics that come into play for me robbing a bank, but I still have to take responsibility. The judge is not going to say, "Oh, well, okay, then you don't have to go to jail because you had a bad childhood." Often we try to fix or we try to perfect our family of origin, or we try to change them, and we live this out in this self in family of origin, all in hyphens, our self in family of origin, in our current relationships, our marriages, and our friendships. If we can understand this dynamic and this truth, and there are ways to learn about that, Roberta Gilbert, Extraordinary Relationships, she also has Extraordinary Leadership, and she explains more of that and how to see that. Also does Jenny Brown, Growing Yourself Up. If we begin to accept this as a part of our reality and accept this as a part of our paradigm, then we can become more flexible, more free, and more clear in relationships. And that's what happens as we become more self-differentiated. We become more flexible, more free, and more clear. Thirdly, turn your negative feelings into self-knowledge. Now that's hard because it seems like, well, you're causing me to have these negative feelings. When actuality, we're having these negative feelings, often because we're triggered, many times because of our own past. So we're triggered by something our spouse or our friends or someone else may do. But we want to turn those negative feelings into self-knowledge. Turn blame into self-knowledge. See your part in the problems. Turn fear and anger and resentment into knowing yourself better. Let me give you an example. John is angry with Mary. John stops and explores his anger. I am angry that I can never do it good enough for Mary, no matter what I do. And then he thinks, well, when did I first learn this? That I can never do it good enough. I'm always being criticized. And then John begins to think, well, I learned that in my family of origin. And my dad, and how angry and frustrated I felt growing up with Dad's impossible expectations and his hypercriticalness. Very negatively critical. And this is the source of John's anger at Mary. It's not that Mary may indeed be critical. She may indeed have high expectations. But our reactivity is what causes solutions to fail and clarity to prevail. We don't have the clarity and our solutions fail when we're in a reactive mode because we're not able to stay calm, think, negotiate, express needs, be empathetic. That all stops when we get reactive. Now we have problems within the relationship. I would suggest you work with a coach or a therapist on these old issues which are still alive in us. John can learn to contract with his wife about realistic wants, needs, calmly and non-reactively. And say, I know. And maybe you can even share in a non-reactive way. Let me give you some examples where, Mary, you were sharing with me how you were critical of me, and when actually this is what I was thinking, and this is what I was doing. And it keeps the highly charged, emotionally charged part of the relationship down so that we can be heard. Because if we're in a highly charged situation, it's hard to be heard and it's hard to hear. You can't do either one when we're all emotionally charged. So the first thing we have to do is calmness. Calmness infuses maturity and stability into a reactive relationship. And I have the video, Calmness is Everything. It's about an 1.5 hour video on YouTube and on my channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems on YouTube. And you can learn more about how that calmness can be utilized for improving relationships and making healthy relationships. Fourthly, detach from your pendulum functioning in a relationship. And pendulum functioning is a black and white functioning, an A or B functioning. And we want to work to move away from A and B thinking. We want to work towards option C thinking. Okay, I can either withdraw and be mad, that's A, or I can stay engaged and express my anger and all of my triggering and my anxiety, that's B. And that often we don't think about or work on thinking about what's in option C. Because all I feel and all I want to do automatically is A or B. And then we just stay stuck in the A or B options. C option is I can calm down. I can learn more about myself and self-functioning and self-knowledge to understand where this might be coming from. I can also work on staying calm again and approaching my spouse or friend and begin to open that dialogue with them, and that I can begin to share with them in a different way around this issue. So it's the same issue, but I'm coming to it with a different envelope, a different package, a different emotional field, and in a different emotional state. That changes the issue quite a bit in how it works in the relationship. So we want to work at getting away from A and B options, the only two I feel I have, because many times people feel like they just have two options. And that's the way they've always functioned. And often it's either an over-functioning or an under-functioning. Or it's an enmeshment or a total cutoff. Well, what's a C option? Which would be, how can I kind of stay connected and also share myself? That's usually a C option. And then fifthly, connect with your partner using yourself. Resist de-selfing when dealing with and having a relationship with your partner. Always go with the mind towards not de-selfing. How can I go and negotiate and talk to, share affection, share negative feelings? Sometimes we need to share negative feelings while being ourselves. And that this then communicates to the other partner, whoever that is, that I'm not going to de-self to try to resolve this problem. I can't. It only makes the problem worse. So I want to show up with me. And there's some inner bonding books like Margaret Paul that helps you stay connected to you and your inner child and your adult child, so that you bring your inner child and your adult child to the relationship. And that helps the relationship heal, helps the relationship grow. Be your true self as much as possible. Connect with your partner where you can. If John's angry about Mary being overcritical and he gets triggered by that, though he's now calmer now because he's gotten some knowledge of where that began and began to work on his issues regarding his dad. Well, where can I connect with Mary? Because Mary has other sides too, besides being hypercritical and high expectations. Connect with her other parts of her. Be affectionate with her other parts of her. What we'll tend to do is go, well, if you're going to be hypercritical of me, I'm going to shut down all intimacy and all connection with you. Well, that's not going to help. That's only going to exacerbate the problem, not help the problem. Sometimes we even have to pretend affection before it arrives. That's what I call that intentional love. Because love is not just whatever feeling you're feeling at the time. Love is action. Love is doing something. And just because my feelings, we don't always want to trust what we're feeling. I may want to act on principle. I do love this person, and so I'm going to act lovingly, even though inside I'm going, I don't love them very much right now. Well, that may be systems feelings talking to you, not your real feelings. Systems feelings will erode the true loving and caring in a relationship and the feelings we have for another person. I wanted to share those things with you today. Please visit my website, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems. Go to that website and join. I hope you will join there. More content and more things are being added to the website. There's a blog on there as well. Hopefully we'll put up another blog posting today. I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. And I want to thank you all for watching today. Have a great day.